Shabbos, everyone. We are live, and there are actual congregants in the room, although you might not see them because of the perspective of the camera and how far back we moved the chairs. But you'll probably hear them.
I know Ruth's not going to be here, so I'll sit in her seat. Yeah.
How many people do we have?
Let's see. I think we have 7.
Okay.
Plus Alan's out there.
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah.
Okay, and Rick is here. Oh, here he is.
Yeah, we're too shy of a million in the building.
Okay, well then, we'll, at this point, what we have to do is go with what we have here.
Right.
I can't, and when there's nobody here, we can count the people at home.
Right.
But when we get to the magic number, we will be able to say Kaddish and everything else. In the meantime, good morning, good Shabbos, and happy Juneteenth.
Shabbos.
And happy Juneteenth.
Yeah.
Or was the National Independence Day,
No,
what do you call it?
I got something like that, yeah.
something like that.
Yeah, I think the actual date, the sign is Juneteenth, National Independence Day.
It's a lot to fit on a card.
Okay.
Well, at least you guys didn't have trouble finding space in the parking lot, I would say.
Oh, no.
No, the parking lot was open and available, and to all you internet people out there, hi.
Yeah.
Sheldon, good to see you.
Good, glad to be here.
Now, is it too cold for anybody?
I got my jacket.
Yeah, okay.
No, I didn't bring it back. I figured it out.
Well, what we've been doing is we've been starting with a little lesson. I don't really have very much to go on today, and I was a little bit late because of logistics. Wife out of town, daughter out of town, me and the dog. Dog needs attention. It's a very simple formula. But here we are. So what we've been doing, has anybody been tuning in at the beginning of the services while we were online? Okay. So I can say basically the same stuff.
You're like a stand-up comedian rolling into a new town.
Yeah. New territory. So what I've been doing is sort of illustrating how the prayers work, how they fit together, what do they mean, and why is the order the way it is. The kind of stuff that we would do in there when we would, in the ancient prehistoric days when we had services live, and we had the alternative in the NPR. So we've been doing something like that. So we're going to, anybody have any questions you'd like to know about the service? Anything at all? Just remember, the shy don't learn. So we went through pretty much the whole service. We started at the end of it with Adon Olam, and then we went back to one of the Kaddishes, and then we went back to Aleinu, and then we did Musaf, and then we started up at the beginning, and we went from the stuff we're going to do now, and Shacharit leading into the Torah service. Shacharit, anybody know what consists of Shacharit? What does Shacharit consist of, I guess would be a better way to put that. Shema and Amidah, right. So how does that work? The Shema, if you pay attention to what it says, and there's a lot of study on this, And I'm not going to go through it, so, you have to kind of take my word for it. The Shema tells you a lot of stuff that we know or we think we know about God. That God is transcendental and He is immanent. That He is merciful and He is legal. All these, various things that in other cultures were ascribed to various deities. But in our system, all these things are consolidated into one, and that's why at the end of the two blessings before the Shema, one says that God is a hard-nosed realist who's very far away and wants everything to be ticking along just right. And then the next one, Ahava Rabbah or Ahavat Olam, comes in and says that God is soulful, that God cares about you, that God has, as I like to say, loved the Jewish people so much that He gave them His only begotten Torah. And so how can you have that contradiction? God is, wants justice, God wants mercy. And then you say, Hashem Echad. You say, Shema Yisrael. You say, what that's telling you is that God encompasses all these things. And then you go through the 3 paragraphs, they have what they have to say, and then there's a prayer after that. It's a long one. It's actually, technically it's a short one, but it's a long one because it covers a lot of territory, but it's a short one because it doesn't begin with a Baruch Atah. And then you go into the Amidah. The Amidah is what you say to God once you know something about Him. What am I going to say to the Creator of the universe? Who am I to talk? What does it matter what I think? But it's telling you that you are important. That, if you pay attention to the way the world works, and that's another way of looking at God, then, you have a place in it. You can do something. So, the whole Shema Amidah setup is there to tell you, learn about God, talk to God, and then what do we do on Shabbat? We read what God said. We read the Torah. Okay, so with that in mind, we're going to start our preliminary service, but we're going to do it more or less the way we've been doing it. Sort of abbreviated with all the highlights and the hits, the songs that you come away humming these tunes. And we're going to start on page 65. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan l'sech v'bina להבחין בין יום ובין לילה. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam שעשני בצלמו. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam שעשני ישראל. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam שעשני בן חורין. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam pokeach ivrim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam malbish sharumim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam matir asurim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam zokef kefufim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam rokah haaretz al hamayim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Shiasalis kol tzorki. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamechin mitzadei gaver. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam ozer Yisrael b'gvura. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam oter Yisrael b'tifara. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hanoten leyoev koach. Baruchim habaim. Okay. Now, what we what we'll do from here is we'll go to page 80, what happened to page 70? No, page 70, here we are, 72. At this point in the service, you read a psalm every day for the day, the one that's chosen. Now, these were the big hits. These were the songs that the Levites used to perform at the temple on the day, and for Shabbat, it was probably this big musical number. You know, they would come in, and they had no girls, so they had to have dancing guys. But the Levites were the musicians, and they made a whole big splash every single day. I imagine they made something special on Shabbat. So here we are. Zev, what do you want to do with this?
Let's just do the last 4 lines.
The last 4 lines it is.
It's unfamiliar. Everyone can sing along.
Tzadika tamar yifra ki erez ba'levanon yizgeh shetulim beveit Adonai bechazron Eloheinu Africhu od yenuvon b'seiva b'shenim v'ra'ananim yiyu lehagid ki yashar Adonai Tzuri v'lo avlata bo.
Sweet sound of a chorus. Sweet sound of a chorus.
Yeah, we should put a mic there.
You just have to sing louder.
All right, if that's what you have to do. We're continuing on page 81. Yeah, 81. This is Psalm 30, and as you've heard me say over the years, this is my favorite, one of my favorite psalms. This really says, you know, you can go to, was it? Be'erev yalin bechi v'laboker rinan. In the evening, you go to sleep crying, and in the morning, you wake up celebrating. You know, it's the Scarlett O'Hara psalm. Tomorrow is another day. הפכת מספרי למחולי, פיתחת שקי ותעזרני שמחה, למען יזמך כבוד ולא ידום, אדוני אלוהי לעולם אודיך.
Alan's here. We have a minion. I don't know.
Yeah, get Alan in here.
I'm not sure. You think he stepped out?
Hi back there.
Fantastic.
So anybody at home that needs to say it, you know, even if there's nobody actually having the same morning's Kaddish, you say it anyway because it's a Kaddish. What does a Kaddish do? It punctuates the service. It tells you when something's ending. This tells you that the section we just finished is over. So if anybody needs to say Kaddish, 82. יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה, בעולמה דברה קירותי וימליך מלכותי, בחיי חון וביומי חון ובחיי דכל בית ישראל, בעגלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך לעולם ולעולמי עולמיה, יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא. ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשה ברכו לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה דאמירון בעולמה ואמרו אמן. יהי שלמה רבה מן שמיה וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו hu yaseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru.
Amen.
And if it's comfortable for you, you are invited to rise, page 83, for the beginning of Pesukei de Zimra. Baruch Shema v'haya ha'olam Baruch Hu Baruch Oseh v'Reshit Baruch Omer v'Yoseh Baruch Ozer u'Mekayim Baruch Merachem al haaretz Baruch Merachem al habriot Baruch Mishalem Sachar Tov l'Rehav Baruch Chai La'ad V'Kayam L'Netzach Baruch Bodeh U'Matzil Baruch Shemo Yachid Chayil Mim Melech Mishubachim Foradeh Shemo HaGadol Baruch Atah Adonai Melech Mehula Batishbacho. You may be seated. We're continuing at the bottom of page 85. Romimu Adonai Eloheinu V'ishtachavu le'har kodsho. Romimu Adonai Eloheinu V'ishtachavu le'har kodsho. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu romimu. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu romimu. Romimu Adonai Eloheinu ve'ishtachavu le'har kodsho. Romimu Adonai Eloheinu ve'ishtachavu le'har kodsho. And we will continue on page 88. As you by now know, this is Psalm 34. It's an acrostic psalm. What does an acrostic mean? Alphabetically. If it was in English, it would be alphabetically, or in Greek, I suppose. But so we're going to do this song is in alphabetical order, but it's got some of the hits of the service in it. So let's take a look at line 3, Gimel. Okay, Gadlu Ladonai iti, U'neromem Shemo yachdav. And we'll go down to the Yud, and we'll get something that we use in Birchat Hamazon. Yeru et Adonai kedoshav, ki ein machzor liregav, kefirim rashu v'ra'evu. I know what you want to do, but you can't do it here. You want to go into the next part that you're familiar with. No, can't do it. But now a song that was very popular in Israel for a great number of years. I think people still remember it. Line Mem. Mi ha'ish hechafetz chayim Ohev yamim liroto Nitzor lishon chameira Usvatecha medaber mirma Sor meira ve'aseto Bakei shalom ve'radfehu Mi ha'ish hechafetz chayim Ohev yamim liroto. And we will continue on page 92. And we'll do the whole thing? Or?
Yeah, might as well.
Okay. Just in time, Charlene. See. Okay,
You can
page.
do the old melody if you want.
Okay.
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay, it's the. Hodu ladonai.
No, the old melody is.
Hodu ladonai kito, ki le'olam chasto. Hodu le'Elohei Elohim, ki le'olam chasto. Hodu ladonai לבדו, כי לעולם חסדו, לא עושה השמיים בתבונה, כי לעולם חסדו, לרוק הארץ על המים, כי לעולם חסדו, עושה הרים גדולים, כי לעולם חסדו, את השמש לממשלת ביום, כי לעולם חסדו, את הירח וכוכבים לממשלות בלילה, כי לעולם חסדו, למכי מצרים בבחוריהם, כי לעולם חסדו, ויוצא ישראל מתוכם, כי לעולם חסדו, ביד חזקה ובזרוע נטויה, כי לעולם חסדו, לגוזר ים סוף לגזרים, כי לעולם חסדו, וישראל בתוכו, כי לעולם חסדו, ונהיה פרעה וחילו בים סוף, כי לעולם חסדו, למוליך עמו במדבר, כי לעולם חסדו, למכה מלכים גדולים, כי לעולם חסדו, ויהרוג מלכים אדירים, כי לעולם חסדו, וסיחון מלך האמורי, כי לעולם חסדו, ולעוג מלך הבשן, כי לעולם חסדו, ונתן ארצה לנחלה, כי לעולם חסדו, נחלה לישראל עבדו, כי לעולם חסדו, ששיב לפנינו זכר לנו, כי לעולם חסדו, ויפרקנו מצרינו, כי לעולם חסדו, נותן לחם לכל בשר, כי לעולם חסדו, הודה לאל השמיים, כי לעולם חסדו. And we will continue on page 96. We're going to do the first couple of lines of Ashrei, then we'll read Ashrei silently, and we'll wind up at the end out loud.
אשרי יושבי ביתך עוד יהללוך סלה,
אשרי העם שככה לו, אשרי העם שאדוני אלוהיו, תהילה לדוד עמך.
תהילה אדוני, דבר פי מברך כל בשר, שם קודשו לעולם ועד, ואנחנו נברך יה, מעתה ועד עולם, hallelujah.
And we're going to go down to the bottom of page 97, 2 lines up. ימלוך אדוני לעולם, אלוהי את ציון, לדור ודור, hallelujah, hallelujah. And we'll go to page 99. See if this sounds familiar, the last 5 lines of Psalm 148. יהללו את שם אדוני, כי נשגב שמו לבדו. הודו על ארץ ושמיים, וירם קרן לעמו. תהילה לכל חסידיו, לבני ישראל עם קרובו. Hallelujah, hallelujah. And on page 100 in the middle section, hallelujah, 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 el bikodsho, hallelujah, birkia uzo, hallelujah, vigvurotam, hallelujah, kurov gulo, hallelujah, take a shofar, hallelujah, ונבל וכינור, הללו, בטוב ומחול, הללו, במינים ועוגב, הללו, בצלצלי שמה, הללו, בצלצלי תרועה, כל הנשמה, תהללויה, הללויה, הללויה, כל הנשמה, Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. On page 101, first paragraph, 3 lines down. L'chol.
Should we invite them to rise?
You may rise. It's traditional to rise in this section, but I've been to services like Yemenite services, where the only thing they stand for, besides their principles, the only thing they stand for is the Amidah. Everything else, no, they never stand for anything else.
They won't stand for it.
They won't stand for it. But here we have 101, first paragraph, 3rd line down. L'chol Adonai hagedula v'hagivura v'hatiferet והנצח וההוד כי כל בשמיים ובארץ לכל אדוני הממלכה והמתנשא לכל ראש. And then comes a little bit of the history of the Jewish people, if you want to read that. That's from Chronicles and Nehemiah, or Nehemiah as we say in Hebrew. And we're moving over to page 102, the second section, and we'll do the traditional one. Az Yashir Moshe u'vnei Yisrael et hashira hazon Adonai v'yomeru le'mor hashir al Adonai ki ga'o ga'az v'rachevo Rama v'yam ozi v'zimraya v'yehi li lishua ze'li v'yavehu v'he'avivi arom menhu Adonai ish milchama Adonai shemo Markavo parve v'cheilo Yara v'yam Umivchar shalisha Tube'u v'yam suf V'yachasiyo Yardu b'msalot kemo aven Yimincha Adonai Nedarim b'koach Yimincha Adonai Tirat Zoyev. And I'll tell you what, we'll turn to page 103 in the middle section. כי לאדוני המלוכה ומשה בגויים ויעלו מושים בהר ציון לשבור את הרי עשיו. והייתה לאדוני המלוכה והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד. You may be seated. It won't be for long, but you can be seated. We're to the top of the middle section. Ilufinu male shira, shira kayam ushonenu ri kamon galav. Ilufinu male shira, Male shira, shira kayam ushonenu rina kamon galav. Ilufinu male shira, shira kayam ushonenu rina kamon galav, kamon galav, kamon galav. And we will continue on page 105 at the end of the first paragraph, 3 lines up from the bottom of the first paragraph at the little box. Nehalecho shebecho nefarechecho nevarech et shem kodshecha k'amor leDavid barchi nafshi et Adonai b'kol karovai et shem kodsho hayel b'tatzumo ruzecha hagadol b'kvod shemecha hagibor lanetzach v'hanora b'noratecha hamelech hayoshev al kisei ram v'nisa. Third paragraph, Shochenad.
Shochenad marom v'kadosh shemo.
Shochenad marom v'kadosh shemo.
V'chatuv rananu tzadikim Adonai v'yesharim navatila b'visharim lidalav v'divrei tzadikim lidbarach v'vilashon chazidim lidramah v'v'kelev kedoshim tidkadash v'machalot v'v'hodam chavit Yisrael v'hodol halel shabeach v'elomeim lehadid v'rech lelev lekalis ha'kol divrei shivot v'tishbechot David ben Ishai
You are invited to rise, page 106, Yishtabach.
Yishtabach Shimcha Lad Makin Birachah Gadol Me'atav Yad Olam Baruch Adonai
Baruch Shemo
El Melech Adonai Tishbachad El Ahudad Adonai Nivlot Habachem B'Shiri Zimra Melech Elchei Olami
Amen.
Yidgadav Shemi Rabbah
Amen.
Yalvachad Yvrach Yirud Yamelech Machutei
B'chayecha v'yomecha v'chayecha b'Beit Yisrael Bagala U'vizman karim limreh Amen. Yesh me'rama mevorach Li'olam lo me'olmaya Yitbarach V'ishtabach V'itbar v'yitma v'yitnasei v'yitadar v'yitale v'yitalal Shemene kudejah Brechu
V'yila mikol birlachata v'shirata
Tushbechata v'nechemata Damiran v'yolma
v'imrel.
Amen. Page 107, the Baruch.
Baruch Hu Adonai HaMevorach.
Baruch Adonai Amvorach Leolam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai
You may be seated. Please join me at the beginning of the first of two blessings before the Shema. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam yotzer or v'orei choshech oseh shalom u'vorei et hakol. We continue to the bottom, page 107 on our own.
Ein kegecha v'inzulatecha, Eves b'tachal midom elach, Ikerkecha
Adonai Eloheinu,
Elohim hazeh, V'inzulacha malkeinu l'chei olam haba, Eves b'tachal
Goleinu,
goleinu limod hamashiach, V'henu melech
Moshienu.
hamodinu, L'chiyat hamitim.
108 El Adon.
El Adon al kol hamasim baruch mevorach v'vichol neshama gadol v'tuvo malei olam da'ad devona savev imoto hamid gael v'chayot hakadosh v'nedar v'chavod ala merkava zechod u'mishor lifnei chiso chesed v'rachamim lifnei chivodo Tovim me'ora jebara Eloheinu yitzaram b'tad v'vina uvaskel kach l'gvura nadan bahem v'yahod mahazim b'gelev devel v'lev zehiv m'vikim noga na'eh zehivam b'chol ha'olam zemevim b'tzeitam b'sasim b'voam ozeh b'yehim ha'ritzon kanam Be'er v'chavod noni melishmor Zahala v'rina v'zecher malchuto Karal hashemesh v'yizrachor V'vihikin surat alvana Shevach nonim lo Koziv ha'marlon Hiferet lo gidula Svavi v'avanim v'chayot ha'kadesh.
We read the top two paragraphs on page 109 to ourselves.
La'el asher shava mikol ha'masim ha'mashvit al ha'shvakisei kiburo tiferet ha'tayom. Tibal sereinu makin v'goaleinu break l'shim spouse.
We're on page 110.
Kulam avihim, kulam birurim, kulam kiborim, v'kulam osimim ha'brabetzon gana, v'kulam porkmit bihem, bigdush avedahara, v'shiva avezim, v'vrach m'shavachim, v'farim aritzim, v'magdishim, v'mahablichim, et shem ha'el ha'melech ha'gadol, ha'gibur ha'melech ha'kadosh hu.
וכולם מקבלים להם מלכות שמיים.
Binachat huach, psafar v'avnima, kiddush ha'kolam gechad, onim yobim bira. Kadosh, 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 Adonai tzvaot, melech haaretz kivodo. Ovadi v'chayot ha'kodesh brash gadol, minasim li'matzravim, v'madam shavachim v'yomrim.
Baruch Adonai mikol kol
El Baruch Adonai
Shmiu
Or chadash al Zion da'ir v'nizgech olanu meir al ra. Or chadash al Zion da'ir v'nizgech olanu meir al ra. Baruch atah Adonai
Baruch Shemo.
Yotzer ha'me'avara.
Amen. And here we go on page 111. the second blessing before the Shema that we talked about a little bit ago, Ahava Rabbah.
Ahava Rabbah Avdanu Adonai Eloheinu Chem Elad Golav Yitera Chamad Aleinu Avinu Malkeinu Avor Avodeinu Shebarchu Becha Shebarchu Becha Avinu Malkeinu V'tilamdim Chukei Chaim Kidichanidu Lamedeinu Avinu Avarachamai Merachim Rachim Aleinu V'din V'libenu Lehavim V'avinu L'haskil Lishmo V'lemadu Lilamed Lishmar Velasol U'likayim Et Kol Divrei Talmud Toratecha V'ahava V'ha'ereinu B'toratecha V'dahamik libeinu B'mitzvotecha V'yachil Livavinu V'yachava U'lira Et Shemecha V'lo Nivos V'olam Va'ed V'lo Nivos V'olam Va'ed Ki v'shem Kodshecha Hagadol V'hanora V'adachnu Nagila V'nizmecha Nagila V'nizmecha V'shuadecha Avinu V'shalom
Tzitzit.
Me'ariba kanivot haaretz V'tolicheinu kamimeyut le'yartzeinu Ki el moel shuot adam Uvanu v'charidam mikol ha'melashon V'giravtanu l'shimcha gadol Selah Be'emet li'od olecha U'li'achedecha be'ahava Baruch Adonai Habacher b'yamo Yisrael b'ahava Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad V'yahavitay Adonai Elohecha V'chol levavecha v'chol nafshecha v'chol me'odecha V'hayu ha'devarim ha'ele Asher Anochi metzavecha Hayom ha'levavecha V'shinadam levanecha V'nibahart bam V'zivdicha b'beitecha V'lechtecha b'derech V'shokbecha v'komecha V'gashadam l'hoda yadecha V'yildodav ha'od b'ninecha V'chedam dam Amzot beitecha V'visharecha
And the next two paragraphs we read very quietly. We're in the middle of page 113. You may release the tzitzit.
Mahakenu belakavodenu golenu govelavodenu zvenu joishwadenu Odenu matzilenu melam shemela Enu ivzulatecha
Page 114.
Ezadavodenu atahul meola Magin mashel nemachim kodor vador shanda Emet, 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 atahul rishon.
Emet, 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 atahu acharon.
Uvivaladecha ilanu melech,
Melech Goel Moshiach.
Uvivaladecha ilanu melech, melech Goel Moshiach. So I'm...
Galtan.
In the middle of page 114.
You are invited to rise.
Israel, v'dei melech, Yehuda v'Yisrael, go aleinu, Adonai tzva'at shemo yidosh Yisrael, Baruch Adonai,
Baruch Shemo.
Yisrael.
The morning Amidah for Shabbat morning starts on page 15, A or B. You skip page 116, we'll get that when we repeat it. And it goes from 117 to 120. It's a silent Amidah. You can add whatever's in your heart to whatever's on the page. We will begin the reader's repetition of the Amidah on page 115A. You may remain seated until the Kedusha.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu v'Elohei avoteinu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Hayel HaGadol, HaGibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chazadim Tovim, V'Konei HaGo, V'Zocher Chazdei Avot, U'Mevi Goel Livnei V'Neim, Leman Shema B'Yahava, Melech Ozer Moshiach Magin Baruch Atah Adonai Magin Avraham
Amen.
Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai Mechemiti Mata Rav Loshia Morid Hata Mechakel Chaim Bechesed Mechayim Edim Mirachamim Rabim Samech Naflim Ve'Rovech Cholim Umatir Asurim Umekayim Emunata Vishenei Afar Michamocha B'Gevuro Umiro Melach Melech Memid Umichael Umazmeach Yeshua V'nemanat alachayot midim Baruch atah Adonai
Shemo.
Mechei Hamiti
Page 116.
Nikadesh et Shimcha ba'olam Yishim
Ishim
shemakdishim
oto
oto b'shmei
marom kakatuv hayad neviyecha
V'kara
Rozel v'amar Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh
Adonai Tzevaot Melocha Kvodo Az b'karash gadol Adev v'chazak Mash v'hivgo Midnasim l'umatzirafim L'umadam Baruch Yomeru Baruch Kivod Adonai Mimkomo Mimkom Chamakinu Tovia V'timloch Alinu G'mechakim Anachnu Lach Matai Timloch B'Tzion V'karo V'yameinu V'lamed Tishkon Tid Gadal V'tid Gadash B'toch Yerushalayim Yirecha L'dor v'dor L'nitzach nitzachim V'einenu tirena Tirena malchutecha Kadavar ha'amor B'shirei uzecha V'einenu tirena Tirena malchutecha Kadavar ha'amor B'shirei uzecha Ayidei David Ayidei David Ayidei David Ashiach Tzidkecha Ayidei David Ayidei David Ayidei David Ashiach Tzidkecha Yimlach Adonai Elohim Melech Tzion V'ador Hallelujah L'dohav Adonai Gidgalecha L'netzach netzachim L'shadach Nagdish Shivchach Elohim Mipinu Meshulam Ba'ed Ki Amelch L'Kadosh Ata Baruch Ata Adonai
Baruch Baruch Shemo.
Ha'el HaKadosh
And you may be seated.
Yismach Moshe b'matnat Chagi Evet Ne'eman Karatalo Kilei Tiferet Biro Shonatata B'yamda Levanecha Har Sinai Shnei luchot avadim, horid biyado, v'chatuv bahem, shemirat Shabbat, v'chatuv bahem, shemirat Shabbat, v'chatuv bahem, shemirat Shabbat, v'chikatu b'toratecha, v'shamru v'nei Yisrael, et ha-Shabbat, לעשות את השבת, דעתם ברית עולם. והנה ובין בני ישראל, אותי לעולם. והנה ובין בני ישראל, אותי לעולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, וביום השביעי שבת ויהי נפש, ביום השביעי שבת ויהי נפש. ולא נדע אדוני אלוהינו וגלרת אלוהינו חלטה מלכין לבדי וזהירים, וגם מנוחתו להשכין ורעילים, כי לישראל עמך נדעתו באהבה לזרע יעקב אשר במחרת המקדש השביעי כולם יזבחו וידאגו בטובך ואשר רצית בו וקידשתו חמד ימים אתה קראת זכר למעשה בראשית. אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו וצווים לחדנו קדשנו במצוותיך ותן חלקנו בתורתך צווינו בטובך ושמחנו בשבועתך ודאר ליבנו עבדך באמת והנחילנו אדוני אלוהינו ביחווה וברצון שבת קודשך ויאנוךו ישראל מקדשי שמך ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת.
Page 118.
Ritzei, Adonai Eloheinu b'amcha Yisrael, v'tefillah da'av v'hashem, v'da'av da'avid v'irbetecha. Ritzei, Adonai Eloheinu b'amcha Yisrael, v'tefillah da'av v'hashem, v'da'av da'avid v'irbetecha, v'tefillah da'av v'yavah dego b'beratzon. V'liratzon amid avodat Yisrael Amecha u'tefilatan v'yava dega b'varatzon v'liratzon amid avodat Yisrael Amecha Ritzei v'techezena inenu b'shuvcha tziyom rachavim Baruch Ata Adonai Hamach Zechinato L'Tzion.
Amen. Modim
anachnu lak. Atov ki lachal rachamecha V'amerachim hilad hamachazadecha me'olam girinu la.
Middle of page 119.
V'yahal kulam yitbrach li'yitmam shimcha makanat tabid le'olam va'ed v'chol ha'chaim yoducha sela v'yahal shimcha b'yamed v'yashvadinu v'zvadinu sela Baruch Ata Adonai אתה השם כל lehodo.
Amen.
Eloheinu Elohei Avodeinu Barucheinu b'bracha HaMishulach Shebatorah HaGvayim Moshe Avdecha HaMurah Mipi Aaron Uvanav Kohanim HaMkedoshecha HaGamor Yivarechecha Adonai V'yishmerecha
Ki ratzon.
Yair Adonai, Bana Belecha Vichuneka.
Ki ratzon.
Is Adonai, Bana Belecha, V'yazim Lecha Shalom.
Ki ratzon. Page 120.
Sim,
Sim.
Sim,
Sim.
Sim Shalom,
Shalom.
Sim Shalom Tova
Uvracha.
Sim,
Sim.
Sim,
Sim.
Sim Shalom Tova Uvracha. Ve'in v'chesed v'rachamim aleinu v'al Gal Yisrael Amecha v'cheinu leinu kulanu ki'echad bi'or panecha. Sim Shalom, Sim,
Sim.
Sim,
Sim.
Sim Shalom,
Shalom.
Sim Shalom Dava Uvracha Ba'olam. Sim,
Sim.
Sim,
Sim.
Sim Shalom,
Shalom.
Dova Uvracha. Kivi arbanecha natata lanu Adonai Eloheinu Torah chayim v'ahavat chesed u'tzedakah v'rachamim v'chayim v'chayim v'shalom. Sim shalom, sim,
Sim.
sim,
Sim.
sim shalom,
Shalom.
sim shalom dava uvracha ba'olam. Sim,
Sim.
sim,
Sim.
sim shalom,
Shalom.
dava uvracha. V'tov b'einecha levarech b'damecha Yisrael b'chol edu v'chol shah b'shlamecha. Sim shalom, sim,
Sim.
sim,
Sim.
sim shalom,
Shalom.
sim shalom dava uvracha ba'olam. Sim,
Sim.
sim,
Sim.
sim shalom, dava uvracha. Baruch Adonai,
Baruch Baruch Shemo.
Hamivarich Damo Yisrael, B'Shalom.
Amen. And we bid a fond adieu to Shacharit, and we finish it off with Kaddish Shalem on page 138.
Yigdav Yigdav Mirabah. Velmadi Rachlu Devam Nechbakot Mechon Mechon V'Chedach Beit Yisrael. Bagalav Yizman Kariv V'Yimrel.
Amen.
Yesh Meirabah Mivara. Li'olam Alam Elmaya. Yidmarach. Yidbar Yishtabach. Yidbar Nomanasik. David David Al-Shem. Yidikol Sham.
Brechu.
Elam Mikol Berchata V'Shivata. Shulchadav Nechmata. David Romanama V'Yimrel.
Amen.
Id kabel sodon vodon Yisrael. Kadam avahon v'shmaya v'yimeru.
Amen.
Yishlam alav mitzvah v'chaim alinu v'akol Yisrael v'yimeru.
Amen.
V'aseh shalom b'mram ahava. V'yaseh shalom alinu v'akol Yisrael v'yimeru.
Amen. Yofi. Yishakach. Okay, now we're going to continue. First of all, a great big welcome to all the people who showed up since we started. Howdy there. And we're going to continue on page 139, and we're going to start the Torah service.
Before we start the Torah service, I'd like to say a couple things about the Torah service, because it's been about 15 months since we've actually had what you will recall as a Torah service. So it's pretty much going to be the same, except we're going to do two things, one extremely unique and one just as a precaution. Before I sing the Shema, when I hold the Torah, I'm going to recite the Shechianu. I'm going to recite it, and I'm telling you that because I want you to recite it with me. Because if there's ever a time to say Shechianu, V'kiyamanu, V'yigiyanu, Lazman Hazeh, after what we've been through in our society, this is it. And then I'll sing the Shema. Also, and I will carry the Torah around, but it's been requested that you lift your talit, you kiss your siddur, you kiss your talit, but don't touch the Torah. But I will bring it around. I want you to be in the presence of the Torah.
It's kind of like, you gotta give a Hollywood kiss to the Torah.
And now, without further ado, let us return to our beloved Torah service. Ein kamalcha va'elohim Adonai v'in gemasecha malechutecha malechut kol ha'olamim u'memshaltecha b'chol dor v'dor Adonai melech Adonai malach Adonai imach le'olam moed Adonai holds the Yama Yidrein Adonai yivarech et amo v'shalom Avar v'chavim hitiv avirtzonecha et Zion Tivneh v'omoha Yerushalayim Tivneh v'omoha Yerushalayim Ki v'choha v'vad matachnu melech elam v'nisa Adon
Olamim.
Hayvin Sahara, Vayamer Moshe.
Kuma Adonai v'yafutzu oivecha v'yanuchu michanecha necha ki mitzion tetzei Torah mitzion
Tetzei Torah,
u'devar Adonai Yerushalayim Baruch Shenatan Torah Baruch Shenatan Torah Mo Yisrael Dushato. We continue on page 140, second paragraph, Be'an Arachetz. Arachetz, Rishmei Kadisha, Kadisha Yakira, Naimar Tushbechan, Narachetz, Be'an Arachetz, Rishmei Kadisha, Kadisha Yakira, Naimar Tushbechal, Herava Kadama, Tiftach Libi, Oraita, Mishalim Libi, Ibalech Olamach Yisrael, Betav Lechaim, Velishlam, Amen. The ark is closed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam שהחיינו וקיימנו והגיענו לזמן הזה.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu. Romemu, Romemu, Adonai Eloheinu. V'ishtachavu, Ishtachavu, Haram Haglav Kadoshu. Romemu, Romemu, Adonai Eloheinu. V'ishtachavu, V'ishtachavu. Okay. Go ahead and be seated. This is so wonderful just to see everybody here, all the people. It's, you know, if I choke up, please forgive me. Nonetheless, a number of interesting things have happened in the history of the Jewish people this week, and we're not going to go into all of them because a lot of them were just disasters. On a positive note, on June the 13th, 1911, there was an actress born. You may not have heard of her. She is sort of in the old cinema, but it was Paulette Goddard. Paulette Goddard. She was married to a very famous non-Jewish guy. His name was Charlie Chaplin. And she was Jewish, he wasn't, but when he did a lot of things that sort of defended the Jews. He made a little film called The Great Dictator where he made fun of Hitler and things like that. And people, critics of him would say, "Are you Jewish, Mr. Chaplin?" And he would answer, "I have not that honor." On June the 14th of 1656, the directors of the West India Company ordered Peter Stuyvesant to let Jews trade in New Amsterdam's different outposts. Now, this might seem like it's out of the blue, but he had sent a request to the company, the West India Company, to get the Jews out and to not let them trade. But he didn't realize that a number of the members of the board of the West India Company were, in fact, Jewish. So they sent him back and said, "No, you let them in." And the rest of it's pretty much just a list of disasters. There's a riot in Sfat. There's expulsion from Florence. Talmud was burned in Paris, rather. This is sort of an interesting thing. On June 18th, 1915, it was not a positive thing by any stretch, but Jamal Pasha, I suppose the ruling head of Jordan or Syria, prohibited Jews from praying at the Western Wall. And the reason he did that was because their prayers include a plea for the reestablishment of a Jewish state. Fortunately, what they were praying for came about, and the Jordanians are no longer in charge of the wall, so that's a good outcome. And then the invention of the yellow badge came from France in 1269, and that was on June 19th. Happy Juneteenth. Okay. Okay. Well, a lot's been said lately. I mean, Juneteenth kind of is an example of the emphasis and the correct emphasis on setting the racial record straight in America. It's quite a ride, and I'm not going to get on one side or the other of the various aspects of it, but there's something that might be relevant to our portion today. Today we read in Parshat Chukat the death of Moses' older sister Miriam. And there's lots of stuff in the Torah and the Midrash that indicate how great she was. And this is why she's known as Miriam HaNeviah, Miriam the prophetess. In fact, our community Seder here, at our community Seder here, and in our house, we put an extra cup next to the cup of Elijah. We put a cup of water there for Miriam. We're going to get to the reason behind that in just a minute. let's see. So Miriam's greatness is told in the Midrash and in the Torah. In the Midrash it says Miriam's parents, when they heard the decree the Pharaoh was saying to, when the babies are born, if it's a boy, kill it, if it's a girl, let it live. Miriam convinces her parents to come back to, Miriam convinces her parents to come back together. They had separated because of this decree. They didn't want to have a child born and have it torn away. But Miriam, as a child, convinces her parents to come back together and says, you know, in the future, Pharaoh's decree might be overturned, but by your not having any children now, your decree lasts forever. And they said, you know, the kid's got a point. And the product of that point was Moses. When Moses' mother places him in a little basket to float down the river, Miriam follows to make sure that the baby is going to be okay. And who rescues little Moses? Bat Pharaoh, the Pharaoh's daughter. But what does Miriam do? Miriam arranges, she's plucky. I don't know any other word for her. She's there, she sees the Pharaoh's daughter holding the child and says, how am I going to take care of this kid? And from the bulrushes, Miriam says, oh, I can get you a Jewish wet nurse. And it turns out to be her mother and Moses' mother. And you can only surmise that Moses, growing up in Pharaoh's house, learns about his own heritage through his birth mother and those moments that they had together. Miriam's role is actually essential in the redemption of the people of Israel from Egypt. It's really, matter of fact, just as a side note, all the people saving lives in this story are women. From Shifra and Puah, the midwives, Miriam, Bat Paro, a lot of very good women in this section here, and it gets pointed out every now and again. Okay, so after crossing the sea, Moses leads the people in the Song of the Sea, which has become part of the daily prayer service. And Miriam takes the women aside while holding a tambourine or something like one and leads the women in song and dance. And sometimes they say that what she says is exactly like what Moses says. Sometimes it's more just the one sentence at the beginning and the rest is rhythm and song. But whatever it was, her leadership and her central role in our journey through the desert are completely obvious. Nevertheless, Miriam's most important role is the survival of the Jewish people in the desert. Miriam dies, and immediately the people complain about the lack of water. It's the very next verse. And so the Midrash teaches that Miriam had a well, this magic well that followed the people through the wilderness, and wherever they stopped, the well stopped, and they always had water. So when Miriam died, the well stopped, and they're complaining about not having water. It was one of the last miracles that God created at the last moment, just before Shabbat. They say that there's I think there's 10 miracles that God creates right before Shabbat in the first week. The first week was heck. I mean, the first week was so busy. But right before Shabbat, God says, these are the miracles that are going to happen in the future, and this was one of them. So we have this famous scene where Moses gets water for the people, but it kind of goes awry. God tells Moses to hit the rock, to talk to the rock, and he hits it, and he doesn't get into the land. And I'm not going to go into all that, but it's probably one of the most oblique passages in the Torah. But you can get these cups, these kos Miriam, with pictures of Miriam and a tambourine, and they're very nice. So keep that in the Seder. She was one of the most virtuous people in the Torah, but still, she was a human being and had moments of weakness. About a couple of weeks ago, we read that she was complaining with her brother Aaron about Moses' wife, the Cushite. So Miriam, it says Miriam and Aaron spoke against Moses because of the Cushite woman that he married. It's not clear whether that's Yocheved is the Cushite woman, or that Yocheved is no longer in the picture for one reason or another, and he married a Cushite woman. But Cush is the Hebrew word for Ethiopia, and it's, in Israel, it's been the word you use for people with dark skin. It's not a compliment. They were the descendants of Noah's son Ham, cursed by their father. So both Miriam and Aaron talk about Moses' wife, but Miriam seems to be the ringleader, as it were. She's the only one that gets punished. God afflicts her with tzara'at. It's usually badly translated as leprosy, and her skin turns white, and she's forced to separate from the community for a week. It's almost like God is saying, you're going to complain about somebody who has black skin, I'll show you what it's like to have white skin. And for a week, she has white, flaky skin all over her. So was she a racist? She was a decent person, but she had a moment where she succumbed to her traditions, her background. I'm willing to say that everybody has some element of racism in them, us against them. If it gets beyond a certain point, it's not acceptable, and that point is set pretty low these days, and I'm glad for that. But, you know, I imagine you grew up hearing bad words, Yiddish words being used against black people, schwarze, things like that, and, you know, never thought twice about it until all of a sudden black lives seemed to matter. There's a Broadway musical, I don't know if you've ever seen it. I myself, I didn't see it, but there is a song in the musical Avenue Q, which is sort of like Sesame Street for actual street people. And it says, everyone's a little racist sometimes. Doesn't mean we go around committing hate crimes. Look around you and you'll find that no one's really colorblind. Everybody's got something that, you know, there's a seed of it. Now, we can overcome it. We can get past it. We can do good things beside it. But we grew up with it, and it's hard to shake. That, you know, it can't be gone completely. So you have to deal with it. So maybe the story of Miriam appears as like a warning to us. We all have the potential to be prejudiced, from the word prejudge. We can be prejudiced against some people for the way they think. We can get prejudiced against some people based on skin color, ethnicity, religion, and all kinds of superficial factors. And it's a tendency that we have and that we should fight. Martin Luther King talked about having a society that his children would grow up in, where people were judged not by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. And long before Martin Luther King, the prophet Malachi had the same dream: have we all not the same Father? Did not one God create us all? Something to keep in mind in the coming days as things get into the news and you're forced to deal with it. So do well. Shabbat Shalom. Now, the Torah portion today.
Good to have you back.
There we go. This is the second of 3 triennial readings, meaning there's a part in the traditional parsha that comes before what we read as well as after. So we're not reading this year about the red heifer, which comes in the first third. What else comes in the first third? Briefly, the ancient priests had developed an extensive stream of rules of purity and impurity. Early Christians thought we considered impurity a bigger deal than almost anything. They use it in the story of the, what's it called, the Good Samaritan. And it's just not true that it was the biggest issue, but it was a very important issue to the early rabbis, certainly. We see remnants of it today about ritual impurity. You wash your hands before eating bread. People who do that these days usually just do it on Shabbat, but people do it every day as well. The number one way to contract ritual impurity, or tumah, is to come into proximity with a corpse of a Jewish person. But there seems to have been an antidote, similar but not matching. The ashes of a pure red heifer, together with other parts of the ritual, and that remove the impurity. If you want to find out more about that, I have more details. The people wander a little bit more, bringing us up to the beginning of our reading today. The first aliyah in your big red chumash, the Eitz Chaim, starts on page 883. Chapter 20, verse 1, we begin at the end of the wandering in the wilderness. Moses' sister Miriam dies and is buried at Kadesh. The water supply ran out at that time, leading the Midrash to describe that well that we just talked about. And you can think about that every time you have a Seder. Page 883, verse 1. 19, verse 1. Am I in the right description?
Yeah, we're on the same, but red heifer, Miriam, the whole deal.
No, but I mean, are we talking about the Miriam, the water running out here?
No, this is the Adumah, Para Adumah. We start over at Adumah. And then after that, it runs into Miriam. Miriam's at 21.
Yeah, 21.
Okay, but we're starting at 19.
Okay, there was a different triennial cycle reading that I prepared this from. Amen.
Tamud Rachel, bat Pesach. Rachel bat Pesach HaLevi, Levi Mkom Kohen, Baruch Tana Torah Shalik B'Shato, Vatem HaVekim Aloechem, Hayim Lochem Hayom.
No, it's not right.
It's been a while. It's not even this.
Baruch et Adonai Hamborach.
Baruch
Baruch
Baruch Adonai Hamborach le'olam ve'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bacha banu mikol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai
Shema.
noten haTorah.
Amen.
Amen. V'daber Adonai el Moshe v'el Aharon lemor. Zod chukat Torah asher tziva Adonai lemor. Daber el bnei Yisrael v'yichlu elecha Farah adumah tmimah asher ein bamum asher lo ala aleha ol nidatem ota el Azar hakohen v'hotzi ota el michutz hamachaneh v'shachat ota lefanav v'lakach el Azar hakohen midama be'etzbaho v'hizah el nochach pnei ohel moed midama sheva be'amim B'sarav et apara leinav, et orav et b'sarav et dama al pirsha yisrov, v'lakacha kohen, eitzeres ve'ezov v'shnei tolat, v'hishlich el doch sreifat apara.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah temet, v'chayei olam nata b'tzolchenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
What's going to happen in the next aliyah will be some of the rituals surrounding the red heifer. How do you prepare for it and that kind of thing.
Yamud Shini, Yamud Shalom Menachem, Ben Chaim Yoel, Vester Rezo, Shini. Baruch Adonai
Hamorach Ve'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim, v'nasan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. V'chibes begadav hakohen. Brachat b'sarav b'mayim v'achar yavo el ha'machaneh. V'tamei hakohen ad ha'arev. V'asori v'otaycha beis begadav b'mayim brachat b'sarav b'mayim. V'tamei ad ha'arev. V'asaf ish tahor. Et ever apara v'niach mechutz l'machaneh b'makom tahor. V'yitah la'adad b'nei Yisrael mish la'aytah. La'adat b'nei Yisrael mishmeret l'meinida chatati.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah emet, Yahayei olam natan b'Eloheinu. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu Torah.
Amen. Talmud Shlishi. Sheina bar Yitzchak v'Sara. Talmud Sheina bar Yitzchak v'Sara. Shlishi.
The third Aliyah begins with verse 10, at the very end of 881.
Baruch hu et Adonai mevarach. Baruch Adonai mevarach li'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Amen. V'chibes ha'osif. Et ifra para et begadav. V'tamei ad ha'arev. V'haita livnei Yisrael. V'lagir hagar b'tocham l'chukat olam. Hanagea me'it l'chol nefesh adam. V'timei shivat yamim. V'tamei shivat yamim. V'yidchatav bayom hashlishi v'yom hashvi yitar. V'im lo yidchatav bayom hashlishi v'yom hashvi lo yitar. Kol hanogea b'meit b'nefesh adam asher yamut v'lo yidchatav. Id mishkan Adonai timei v'nichreta nefesh ha'im Yisrael ki meinida lo zorak alav tameiya ad tumoto hovo. O tumoto hovo, zod al-Torah adam ki yamut b'ohel, kol haba el ha'ohel, v'chol asher b'ohel yitma shivat yamim, v'chol chlifat tuach asher ein samid b'til alav tamehu, v'chol asher yiga al pnei hasadeh, b'chal al-charev v'ovemit, v'etzem adam u'v'kavar, kaver yitma shivat yamim, V'lakach la'tamei, v'lichol la'tamei me'afar sreifat ha'chatat, v'natan alav ma'ayim chayim el keli.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam natan b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Yamod v'ei Moshe Simcha ben Yaakov Gittel. Is that right? Yeah. Yamod Moshe Simcha ben Yaakov Halevi v'Gittel. V'ei. Some things I guess you don't forget. I'll point anyway. Just 1 second. Okay.
Baruch hu et Adonai havarach. Baruch Adonai havarach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Page 8.
Amen. V'lakach ezov v'tavav b'mayim. Ish tahor v'zohel. V'alkol ha'keli v'al nefashot asher hayu sham. V'al hanogea v'etzem o v'chalal o v'meid o v'kaver. V'ezah tahor al tamei v'yom hashlishi v'yom hashvi'i. V'chitu v'yom hashvi'i. V'chibes b'gadav rachatz b'mayim v'taher ba'arev. V'ish asher yitma lo yidchat teher taha v'nichreta nefesh ha'im mitoch ha'kahal ki et migdash Adonai timei meinida lo zarak alav tamehu והייתה להם לחלוקת עולם, ומעשה מי הנידה יכבס בגדיו, ונוגע במי הנידה יטמע עד הערב, וכל אשר ייגע בו הטמא יטמע, והנפש הנוגעת תטמע עד הערב.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torat emet, v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
아멘. תעמוד חמישי.
We're at the beginning of chapter 20, page 883, chapter 20, verse 1 at the bottom.
תעמוד דבור בדלקים גצל ורלקי. חמישי.
Baruch et Adonai hambarach.
ברוך ברוך לעולם ועד.
Baruch Adonai hambarach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
ויבואו, אמן, ויבואו, בני ישראל כל עדה מדבר סין, בחודש הראשון, וישב העם בקדיש, ותעמוד שם מרים ותיקבר שם, ולא היה מים לעדה, והקילו על משה ועל אהרון, וירב העם ממשה, ויאמרו לאמור, ולו גבנו בגבה אחינו לפני אדוני, ולמה הבאתם את הקהל הזה אל המדבר, קהל אדוני, אל המדבר הזה, למות שם אנחנו וראינו, ולמה העליתנו ממצרים, להביא אותנו אל המקום הרע הזה, לא מקום זרע, ותאנה וגפן ורימון, ומים אין לשתות, ויבואו משה ואהרון מפני הקהל, אל פתח אוהל מועד, ויפלו על פניהם, וירח כבוד אדוני עליהם.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah emet, v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
아멘. תעמוד שישי. תעמוד מרים יוכבד בת יוספיון. בת יוספיונה שישי.
This is another big story that here we have how Moses is told to take his staff and bring forth water from a rock as the people complain about not having any water. And Moses gets in a bad mood and insults the people, hits the rock twice, and water comes out. And the reason isn't clear, but one take is because he didn't trust God to make the water come out without striking it. He's told that he'll never enter the land that he's leading the people to.
Baruch hu et Adonai hamvorach.
ברוך ברוך לעולם ועד.
Baruch Adonai hamvorach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bahar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et torato. Baruch atah Adonai
Shema.
noten haTorah.
Amen.
אמן. וידבר אדוני אל משה לאמור, קח את המטה, והקל את העדה אותה, אתה ואהרון אחיך, ודיברתם אל הסלע לעיניהם, ונתת מימיו, והוצאת להם מים מן הסלע, והשקית את העדה ואת בעירם. ויקח משה את המטה מלפני אדוני, כאשר ציווהו, ויקהילו משה ואהרון את הקהל אל פני הסלע, ויאמר להם, שמעו נא המורים המן הסלע הזה נוצרים לכם מים. וירם משה את ידו, ויח את הסלע במטהו פעמיים, ויצאו מים רבים, ותשת העדה ובעירם. ויאמר אדוני אל משה ואל אהרון, יען lo emantem bilhak disheni lene v'nei Yisrael lachim lo tavil et agahal hazeh el haaretz asher natati lahem hima mei meriva asher avu v'nei Yisrael et Adonai v'kadesh ba'am.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet b'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai
Baruch Shemo.
noten haTorah.
Amen.
Amen.
Yamur Vael ben Shmuel Eid V'chana Shivi.
I'm getting there.
Baruch habarach.
Baruch Namrak Lelam Vael.
Baruch habarach Vaed. Baruch Atanai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natamanu Torah emet b'chayei olam. Asher b'chabanu mikol hamim natamanu Torah. Baruch atah nodei Torah.
Amen. Vayishlach Moshe Malachi B'Kadesh Melech Edom Kol Marachicha Yisrael Atah et Kol Atah Asher Mitzatanu Vayirdu Avotenu Mitzrayma V'neshib Mitzrayma Mimrabim Vayirdu Lanu Mitzrayim Vayareu Lanu Mitzrayim Avotenu V'nitzak El Adonai Vayishma Kolenu Vayishlach Malach V'yotzienu Mitzrayim V'nei Anachnu B'Kadesh Irkitzei Gevulecha Nebrana Bartzecha Lo Navor B'Sadei Avacharem V'lo Nishtem Iver Derech HaMelech Nelech Lo Nite Aminusmo Ad Asher Navor Gevulecha V'yomer Lavedom Lo Tavor Bi Pen Bacher V'etzei Likratecha V'yomnu Elav B'nei Yisrael B'Misila Naleh V'mimecha Nishtenu Miknai V'natati Michram Rak Ein Davar B'Ragli Evora V'yomer Lo Tavor V'yetzei Edom Likrato Bam Kaved V'yad Chazaka V'yema Ein Edom Nitzahon Ed Yisrael Avar B'Gvulo V'yed Yisrael Me'alav.
Baruch Atanai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan Torah emet b'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch Atanai noten haolam.
Amen.
Eloheinu melech haolam ha'komel v'chavim tovot v'shevel kol tov.
Mikshmacha Kol Tov V'Gamacha
Kol
Kol
Tov,
Tov
Selah.
I would like to explain real quick why I added
The Gomel.
the gomel there. A few of you here today, and probably a few online, know that last year I had a serious accident where I was crossing an intersection while visiting my girlfriend, and that as I was crossing the intersection, I was hit by a car while I was in the crosswalk. In the course of my recovery, I also suffered a serious setback, which include an infection of some kind. So, and by a strange coincidence, my girlfriend is also currently suffering a major health problem of her own. So I asked Zev and Ken in particular if I could have the seventh Aliyah, because in a few moments we will be giving the name, we'll be saying Misha Barak. And in addition to the names which are listed there, although we'll not be reading them here, there is one name that I would like to add, and that is her name, which is Sarah Bat Lila.
Okay, I'll add it to the list, Alan and Rick.
Yeah. Want to do Mishaberach? Yeah, Mishaberach. Okay.
Yeah.
If you'd like to rise while I recite the Mishaberach, as we keep those in our hearts and minds in need of healing. Mishaberach Avotenu Mikor HaBeracha V'Imotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Mishebeira imotenu mikor haberacha lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. Yidgadav Shemi Rabba.
Amen.
Yalmadi Barak Raludev Yamelech Machludei. Bechai Echad Yomecha. V'chayid Echad Beit Yisrael. Bagala. V'vizman Kari Vimrel.
Amen.
Yesh me Rabba Mivora. Li'olam Olam Almaya. Yitbarach v'ishtabach, v'yitbar v'yitma v'yitnaseh v'yithadar, v'yithaleh, shemere kodeshah, v'yihila migod birlachata v'shirata, tushvechata v'nechemata, da'amirav b'yalma v'imrel. Yamod Nachum ben Eliezer Esther, Mavtir Chazak. We started with the Vayomer Elav Edom Lo Tavor. That's it.
Baruch Hu et Adonai Hamborach.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam. Asher b'chabanu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch Ata Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen.
Amen. Vayomer Elav Edom Lo Tavor Bi, Pemlech Erevet Seli Kratecha. Vayarmu Elav B'nei Yisrael B'misila Na'aleh. V'memecha nishte'ani u'miknai v'natati michram. Ragi davar b'ragli evora. Vayomer Lo Tavor. Vayetze Edom likrato b'am kaved v'yad chazaka. V'yamayin Edom nitan et Yisrael avar bigvulo. Avor bigvulo. Vayed Yisrael me'alav.
Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam Asher natan lanu Torah emet Chayei Olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch Ata Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen.
Your mic.
Please go. Yaman Makbiya, Taman Golele. Okay. Please rise as I lift the Sefer Torah. These are the Torah, Asher Sam Moshe, Livnei Bnei Yisrael, Pi Adonai,
Yad Moshe. Shkoach, Rick. While they're getting set up over there, let me just tell you a little bit about the Haftarah today. It's from the book of Judges. It's the story of the warrior Yiftach. Now, many of us are familiar with the story as to how he takes an oath saying, if the Lord grants me victory in the next battle, I'll sacrifice the next thing that comes through that door. People had animals living in their house, so it might have been a chicken, it might have been a goat or something that come out. He thinks that one of the animals will walk out, and that'll be the one that he sacrificed. Unfortunately, the first thing that came through the door was his daughter. The reading today is the part that leads up to that event, and we see Yiftach as a flawed leader from a less than noble background. As with all real heroes, he's all too human.
Baruch ata Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar b'nviim tovim v'ritzav v'divreihem anemarim be'emet. Baruch ata Adonai habocher b'torah u'v'Moshe avdo u'v'Yisrael amo u'v'nvi'ei ha'emet v'tzedek. Vayiftach hagiladi haya gibor chayil v'hu ben isha zona v'yolet Gilad et Yiftach v'teiled eshet Gilad lo banim v'yigdalu v'nei Asha v'yigarashu et Yiftach v'yomer lo tinchal b'veit avinu ki ben isha acheret ata vayivrach Yiftach mipnei echav vayeshev ba'aretz tov vayidlatu el Yiftach hadashim rikim vayitzu imo vayehim yamim vilachamu v'nei amonim Yisrael vayehi kasher nechamu v'nei amon im Yisrael v'yelchu ziknei Gilad lekachat et Yiftach me'eretz tov v'yomru leYiftach lechar v'yayita lanu lekatzin v'ni lakachama b'ivnei amon v'yomer Yiftach leziknei Gilad halo atem snehetem oti v'tegarashuni mi beit avi umadua batem elai ata kasher tzar lachem vayomru ziknei Gilad el Yiftach lachen ata shavnu elecha velachta imanu v'nilchamta b'vnei amon v'hayita lanu l'rosh lechol yoshvei Gilad v'yomer Yiftach el ziknei Gilad im meshivim atem oti lilachem b'vnei amon v'natan Adonai otam lefanai anochi eyeh lachem l'rosh vayomru ziknei Gilad el Yiftach Adonai yeh shomea beinotenu im lo chidvarcha ken naaseh vayelech Yiftach el ziknei Gilad v'yasimu amoto alehem l'rosh u'lekatzin v'daber Yiftach et kol devarav lifnei Adonai b'mitzpah vayishlach Yiftach malachim el melech b'nei amon lemor mali velach ki ba'tai lai lilachem be'artzi vayomer melech b'nei amon el malachei Yiftach ki lekach Yisrael et artzi be'aloto mimitzrayim Me'arnon v'yad hayabok v'yad hayarden v'yata shiva eten b'shalom v'yosef ot Yiftach v'yishlach malachim el melech b'nei amon v'yomer lo ko amar Yiftach lo lekach Yisrael et eretz Moab v'yet eretz b'nei amon ki belotam mimitzrayim vayelech Yisrael b'midbar ad yamsuf vayavo kadesha vayishlach Yisrael malachim el melech edom lemor ebrana v'artzecha velo shama melech edom v'gam el melech Moab shalach velo avav vayeshev Yisrael b'kadesh vayelech b'midbar ויסב את ארץ אדום, ויד ארץ מואב, יבוא ממזרח שמש לארץ מואב, ויחנון בעבר ארנון, לא באנו בגבול מואב, כי ארנון גבול מואב. וישלח ישראל מלאכים אל סיחון מלך האמורי, מלך חשבון, ויאמר לו, ישראל, נא ברנה וירצך עד מקומי. ולא האמין סיחון את ישראל לעבור בגבולו, ויאסוף סיחון את כל עמו, ויחנו ביעצה, ויילחם עם ישראל. וייתן אדוני אלוהי ישראל את סיחון ואת כל עמו ביד ישראל ויקום. וישרש ישראל את כל הארץ האמורי, יושב הארץ ההיא. וירשו את כל גבול האמורי, מארנון ועד הירוק, ומן המדבר ויד הירדן. ואתה אדוני אלוהי ישראל, הוריש את האמורי מפני עמו ישראל, ואתה תירשנו, הלא את אשר יורישך, כמו שאלוהיך אותו תירש, ואת כל אשר הוריש אדוני אלוהינו, מפנינו אותו נירש. ואתה הטוב טוב אתה מבלק בן ציפור מלך מואב, הרוב רב עם ישראל, עם נוחם בם, ושבט ישראל בחשבון ובבנותיה, ובארור ובבנותיה, ובכל הערים אשר על ידי ארנון 300 שנה. ומדוע לא הצלתם בעת ההיא? ואנוכי לא חטאתי לך, ואתה הוצאתי. ראה להילחם בי, ישפוט אדוני השופט היום, בין בני ישראל ובין בני עמון. ולא שמע מלך בני עמון אל דברי יפתח אשר שלח אליו. ותהי על יפתח רוח אדוני, ויעבור את הגלעד ואת מנשה, ויעבור את מצפה גלעד, ומצפה גלעד עבר בני עמון. וידר יפתח נדר לאדוני, ויאמר אם נתון תיתן את בני עמון בידי, והיה היוצא אשר יצא מדלתי ביתי לקראתי בשובי ושלום מבני עמון. והיה לאדוני ועליתיהו עולה. ויעבור יפתח אל בני עמון להילחם בם, ויתנם אדוני בידו. ויכה מעורר ביד בו אחד מניד 20 עיר, ביד אבל כרמים מכה גדולה מאוד, ויקנו בני עמון מפני בני ישראל. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, צור כל העמים, צדיק בכל הדורות, אלא נאמן האומר ויוצא, מדבר עליהם, שכל דבריו אמת וצדק. Neman atahu Adonai Eloheinu v'nemanim devarecha v'davar echad midvarecha achor lo yeshuv rekam ki el-melech neman v'rachaman ata Baruch ata Adonai
Baruch Shemo.
ha'el haneman b'chol dvarav
Amen.
V'chem al Tzion ki beit chayenu v'laluvat nefesh toshia v'imhera v'yameinu Baruch ata Adonai
Baruch Shemo.
Mesameach Tzion b'vaneha
Amen.
Samcheinu Adonai Eloheinu b'Eliyahu hanavi avdecha V'machut Beit David Meshichecha v'mehira yavo v'yagel libenu al kiso lo yeshev tzar v'lo yinchalu od acherim et kvodo ki v'shem kadshecha nishbata lo shelo yechben nerot le'olam va'ed Baruch ata Adonai
Baruch Shemo.
Magen David
Amen.
Al Torah v'al havodah v'al hanvim v'al yom haShabbat hazeh shenatata lanu Adonai Eloheinu l'kedusha v'limnucha l'chavod u'tifaret al hakol Adonai Eloheinu anachnu modim lach u'mvarchim otach yitbarek shemecha v'fi kol chai tamid le'olam va'ed Baruch ata Adonai Mekadesh HaShabbat
Amen. Shekoach.
Well, that's one week I haven't done a Haftorah.
You don't do it next week either.
That's true, I got two of them.
Thank you, Ken. Good story, well told. Let's go over to our Siddur, page 148. And we'll read the last paragraph on the page as a prayer for our country. May this land, under your providence, be an influence for good throughout the world, uniting all people in peace and freedom, helping them to fulfill the vision of your prophet. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they experience war anymore. And let us say, Amen. Lo yisa goy el goy cheref, lo yilmedu od milchama. Lo yisa goy el goy cheref, lo yilmedu od milchama. V'nomar Makor Chaim, source of all life, we ask for a quick end to hostilities around the world, domestic and foreign, and the swift and safe return of our young men and women to their homes. And let us all say,
Amen.
prayer for the state of Israel. Every week it's got a new context. They have a new government. Let's see how well they do. Let's read together if we can. Avinu Sheba Shemayim, Tzur Yisrael v'go'alo, Barek Medinet Yisrael, Reshit Smichat Gulatenu. Hagen Aleha be'evrat chastecha, ufros Aleha sukat shlomecha, ushlach orcha v'yamidcha l'roshea, sareha v'yoetzeha, v'taknem be'etzat tova milfanecha. Chazek idei meginei eretz kodshenu, v'anchilem Eloheinu Yeshua, v'yatered nitzachon teatrem. ונתת שלום בארץ ושמחת עולם ליושביה ונאמר Amen. And I'm getting nostalgic here. Robbie, lead us in Ashrei, page 151.
אשרי יושבי ביתך עוד יהלוך סלע.
אשרי העם שככה לו, אשרי העם שאדוני אלוהיו.
תהילה לדוד ארמים כלך מלך, ואברך שמך לעולם ועד.
בכל יום אברכך, בלה שמך לעולם ועד.
גדול ענן מכולם מאוד, ולגדולתו יחקר.
דור לדור ישבח מעשיך, גבורותיך יגידו,
Adar kefo holdecha, v'gifreni plotecha asika.
וזוז נורותיך יאמרו, גדולתך ספרנה.
Seker of tu kaya biu, v'sikareka yiranenu.
וברחום אדוני, ערך אפיים וגדל חסד.
Tov Adonai lako, v'rachamav v'kol ma'asav.
ידעו כל מעשיך, ועשידיך יברכוך.
Kevo mahutaka yomeru, gevurutaka yetaberu.
לא הודיע לבני אדם גבורותיו, כבוד הדר מלכותו.
Malchutcha malchu kol amim, umem shavtecha bechol dor v'ador.
סומך אדוני לכל הנופלים, וזורקי לכל הכפופים.
Einei koelecha yesaberu, v'adoktein lachem el chlam beito.
וברך את ידיך, מסביר לכל חי רצון.
Sadik Adonai bechol tiracha, v'chasi bechol ma'asav.
קרוב אדוני לכל קורב, לכל אשר יקראו באמת.
Ritzon yav yaseh, v'eshavatam shema v'yoshem.
אדוני קרובה, יקר רשעים ישמיד.
Kilat Adonai yedaber pi.
ויברק כל בשר שם קדשו לעולם ועד, ואנחנו נברך ים את אביעד עולם. הללויה.
Hallelujah, Shem Adonai, Keneskav Shem Alevado, Hadaret, Nishamayim, Hayaren, Geren Yamo, Ilalecho, Hasida, Livnei Yisrael, Admirolo, Hallelujah, Hallelujah, Yismar Lidavim,
וישבר אדוני ארזי הלבנון. להבות אשכול אדוני, יחיל מדבר, יחיל אדוני מדבר קדש, כל אדוני יכול אלי אלוה. אדוני למה בויה, וישב אדוני מלך לעולם. אדוני עוז לי עמו ייתן, אדוני יברך את עמו בשלום. עץ חיים היא, למחזיקים בה, ומחיה מאושר, רוחיה דרכי נועם, וכל נתיבותיה שלום אשיבנו, אדוני אליך ונשובה. חדש, חדש ימינו, חדש koach.
Shake hands when I'm saying, I forgot the routine.
Yeah, good you caught up. We're on page 155 for the Chatzi Kaddish that ends the Torah service and brings us into the Musaf.
Yidkadav yidkadash shemei rabba.
Amen.
B'yamad v'rach v'lutei v'yamelech malchutei. B'chayechon u'vyomechon v'chayidech al Beit Yisrael. Bagala, bagala, v'vitmakari livrel.
Amen.
Yeshmei rabba mivorach. Le'olam lo me'omaya, Yitbarach, Yitbarach v'ishtabach, V'yitbar v'yitman v'yitnaseh v'yitadar, v'yitadar v'yitadal, Shemei Kudeshah,
Brechu.
Leila Mingol Birlachata v'shirata, Tushbechata v'nechemata, Damiron bi'alma v'imrel.
Amen. We will pray together for the Musaf Amidah from on pages 156b and 157 for the Kedusha, and then we'll finish silently from pages 158 to 161.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu Elohei Avoteinu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el HaGadol, HaGiboy v'Hadorah, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'konei Hakol, V'zocher Chasdei Avot, V'mevii Goel Livnei Bneihem, V'man Shemao B'Yahava, Melech Ozer Ulfokeinu Moshil Magin, Baruch Atah Adonai, Magin Avraham, V'vokei Tzara, Atah Gibor Leolam Adonai, Mechimiti Mahata, Rav Hoshia, Morid Hata, Mechakel Chaim Bechesed, Mechayim Eitim Berachamim Rabim, Samech Naflim Verofei Cholim, Umatir Asurim, Umekayim Emunatah, Lishenei Afar, Michamocha Bagivurot, Umiro Melach, Melech Memit, Umechayeh, Umatzmiach Yeshua, V'nemanat Alachayot Medim, Baruch Atah Adonai, Mechei HaMetim.
157.
Na'aritzecha v'na'akdishecha, Kisosiach sarfei kodesh, Hamakdishim Shimcha b'kodesh, Kakatu hayat nevi'echa, V'kara zel v'yamar, Kadosh, 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 Adonai Tzivot, Melech haaretz Kevodo, Kevodo, Malei Olam, Misharit Tov Shalim Zelazeh, Hayim Mikom Kevodo, Umadam Baruch Yomeru, Baruch Kevodo Adonai Mimkomo. Mimkomo, Lifen Birachamim, V'yachonam Ham Yachadim, Ham Yachadim Shemo, Erev Avoker, V'chol Yom Tamid, Pamayim Be'ahava, Shema Omrim, Shema Yisrael,
אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
ולדברי קודשך כתוב לאמור,
ימלוך אדוני לעולם, מלך ציון לדור ודור, הללויה.
לדור ודור נגיד קולך, לנצח נצח ולשעתך נקדיש. שבחך והן מפינו למוס ללמד, כי המלך אלוהים הקדוש, אתה ברוך, אתה אדוני.
ברוך הוא וברוך שמו.
האל הקדוש.
אמן. If you need more time to finish your own personal Amidah, please take the time to do so, or you could join us on page 181 as we finish the Musaf and head into our concluding prayers with Kaddish Shalem. Yet Bavish Tabach, you probably know Menashe, the David and Al Shemid, Kodisha. Brechu.
Elamika Becha, Davishvada, Tulkadavlachmata, the Ramama Vegimero.
Amen.
Heed Gabel Sodom, no Israel. Kadam, upon Vishmaya, Vegimero.
Amen.
Islam Lava Michamai, Vachayam Ali, Navaka Israel, Vegimero.
Amen.
Oh, say Shalom Bimrama. Shalom Aleinu, ve'alcha Yisrael, v'imru, amen. Yaseh shalom, shalom Aleinu, v'alcha Yisrael, Yaseh shalom, shalom Aleinu.
V'al kol Yisrael.
v'Yisrael.
Amen. Page 182, Ein Keloheinu.
Ein Keloheinu, Ein Gadonenu, Ein Gemalkeinu, Ein Gemashiachenu, Mi Keloheinu, Mi Gadonenu, Mi Gemalkeinu, Mi Gemashiachenu. Nodel Eloheinu, Nodel Adonenu, Nodel Malkeinu, Nodel Moshiachenu, Baruch Eloheinu, Baruch Adonenu, Baruch Malkeinu, Baruch Moshiachenu. Atahu Eloheinu, Atahu Adonenu, Atahu Malkeinu, Atahu Moshiachenu. Atahu Shekiro, Avoteinu, Livanecha Eketoret Asamim.
Alinu L'Shabech 183.
Alinu L'Shabech
Ladon HaKol, Lateit Gdula Liotzer Breshit, Lo Asanu Kikoye Aratzot, Lo Samanu Kimishpachot Adama, Shelo Sam Elkeinu Kahem, Huraleinu Kechol Amolam, V'anachnu Korim U'mishtachim U'modim, Lech Malchei Melachim, Baruch Hu. Unot Hashamayim v'yosei haaretz v'yikaro b'shamayim mima'al Shkin aruzo Emeromim Eloheinu Eino.
Kakatu b'toratecha, v'nayim lach le'olam va'eh, v'nemar, v'haya Adonai, v'melech ha'al ha'aretz.
Vayom hahu hahu yeh Adonai echad. You may be seated. In solemn testimony to the unbroken faith which links one generation to the next, those in mourning or observing a yurtzeit will rise in just a minute to praise God's name with the words of the Mourner's Kaddish on page 184. But first, yurtzeits observed this week include Peretz Apter, Louis Aronson, Mary Aronson, Chana Somech Batsara, Rabbi Ben Nachman, Helen Biolis, Sylvia Buff, Ida Burstein, Goldie Kolodny, Gertrude Dower, Paula Donna Barvanel, Adam and Ashley Ernst, Julius Friedowitz, Ida Garber, Velvel Goldsman, Dorothy Goldstein, Paul L. Graff, Kate Grossman, Max Grossman, Anna Horowitz, Mary Illians, Rochelle Jacoby, Marianne Kessler, Gary Allen Kite, Frank Edmund Lewin, James L. Lyons, Rose Mendelovitz, Goldie L. Mesnikoff, Liba Meyerson, Marvin Edward Milkis, Edward Moskowitz, Regina Palmer, Milton Pelsiger, Isabella Petzenbaum, Sarah Rosen, Menachem Mendel Rottenberg, Joseph Rubin, Blanche Schwartz, Julia Sokol, Fegus Sporn, Irving Stein, Sal Tukotsky, Edward Turbo, Harold Lewis Wachman, Evelyn Ava Weintraub, and Ruth Friedman Wildman. We can revive an old custom here. If you're near somebody who's saying Kaddish, feel free to stand closer than 6 feet to them. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shemei Rabbah, b'yolma divra kirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon v'yomeichon, b'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael, b'gala v'zman kari v'yimru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevorach li'olam u'mei omaya, Barak v'yishtabach v'yipa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnasei, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalach, shmei d'kudsha b'rechu, li'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, damirom b'yoma v'yimru amen. Yehei shlama, Rabba min shmaya, v'chayim oleinu, v'chol Yisrael v'yimru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu yaseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yimru amen. And we rise for Kiddush.
V'shamiru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, la'asad et ha-Shabbat, v'doro damri dalam, be'eni v'v'nei Yisrael oti, v'olam ki sheshet yamim, asa Adonai el ha-shamayim el ha'aretz, v'vayom ha'shvi, Shabbat v'yinafash. Haki birach l'naydim ha-Shabbat v'akadashel. Sarai manan rabbanan rabbatai.
L'chaim.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech ha'olam. Borei pri ha'gafen.
Amen.
All right, on this side of the bima now. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kedishanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al netilat yadayim. Amen. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. I can't say it was worth a year and a half, but it's good.
It's as fresh as the day it was frozen. Okay, so we have some announcements. Lou, before you get up here, Lou, I want to say that we are not going to have the little Kiddush cups right now because of the current situation. We're not sure exactly what we're doing yet as far as that goes. So you're going to have to be, what they say, yotze. You've fulfilled your obligation by hearing Zev say the Kiddush, and you'll make your own motzi at home.
Thank you, Rabbi Cantor. It's a pleasure to be back in here again. I know many of you came last Friday night, a week ago, for our grand opening, which I thought went terrifically, and it felt so good to be back, and it's so great to be here with you again, and we appreciate having you all back. And I do want to mention, first I want to thank everybody for their participation today, and I want to send out a special thanks to Tony, who does all the setup work for us, for getting this room set up, and for all the things he does to help us be ready to have services. You know, you forget after all this time all the things that have to go on to do this, and I'm sure that goes for the rabbi and the cantor getting preparation. So again, we appreciate it, and thank you so much for that. I do want to mention a couple things about the rules and the protocols that we're following. It is our intent to follow the county, state, and CDC guidelines. And while many, many things have been lifted, when it comes to masking, okay, our intent is to follow the rules, which is if you've been vaccinated, okay, you do not need a mask when you attend services. However, we do have a number of people who have been vaccinated who, in an abundance of caution, continue to wear a mask, and that's fine, and I want everyone to appreciate that someone wearing a mask doesn't mean they haven't been vaccinated. They may very well have. Now, for those attending who have not been vaccinated, you must wear a mask, and we're going to ask you, and we're going to rely on you to be honest about your vaccination status. So please bear with us. We're doing it to follow the rules and to be cautious. So I appreciate, and we all appreciate your cooperation. Now for the remaining announcements. Coming up, Sunday, July 18th, is Tisha B'Av and the fast of the 9th of Av. And so watch for emails for details of the services for that fast day. And the rabbi can go into more detail on it if I missed anything on that. Looking down the road a bit, on Saturday, August 28th, there'll be Slichot services after Shabbat. It's not too late to order honey for Rosh Hashanah, free shipping until Wednesday, July 7th if you get your orders in. After that, you're going to have to pay an additional $5.50 per jar for the shipping. See the tidings for information, or you can call the office. New Year's greeting deadline is Tuesday, August 10th. That's also a correction from something that was in tidings. Rosh Hashanah bakery orders must be in by Monday, August 23rd, so don't miss that deadline. And remember, the Misha Bayrak list rolls over, I believe, every 6 weeks. So if you know that somebody has to come off the list, please let the office know. If you want to put somebody on the list, again, let the office know. With that, I'll say Shabbat Shalom and welcome back, and hello to everybody who's still streaming. And a reminder that if you're not here, if you're not able to attend in person, we will continue to stream all our services as we possibly can. So thank you very much. Next week's bar mitzvah will be hopefully well attended. So you bring that up. It's important. We're going to be very cautious about the masking, but the bar mitzvah, the b'nai mitzvahs, both of them will be in this room. We'll have overflow. I hope you understand. We expect a big crowd. So when we get overcrowded in here, we're not going to allow seating in here. You'll have to sit outside where you can watch it on the screen out there. And of course, we also will stream it for people who can't make it here. And so that reminds me of something, and that is, if you were not invited by the Cones or have not already called the office, please RSVP. And that goes for all services in the immediate future. Please RSVP with the Office for Services so we can make sure we're planned ahead. We have enough things for anything we're giving out, and also we know what the seating arrangements will have to be. So thank you again.
Thank you, Lou. Before we go to Adon Olam on page 187, I've been asked to transmit the message from Mrs. Yagubi that the Yagubi family appreciates all the support they've gotten during the hard time of losing David, and all the cards that you've sent and all the donations you've made to the synagogue, et cetera, in his honor. So we're sad for, of course, the event, and we're happy to help. Page 187, Adon Olam.
Adon Olam, Hashem alach b'terem kol, Yitzir nivra, li'ed nasa v'chefso kol, Hazai melech shemo nikra, Hazai melech shemo nikra, v'yacharei kichlad hakol levado, imlach nahara, v'hu haya, v'hu hoveh, Vehu yeh b'tivara, Vehu yeh b'tivara, Vehu echad, V'yein sheni lehamshilo, lehachbira, B'li reishit, B'li dachlit, V'lahaz, V'hamisra, V'lohaz, V'hamisra, Vehu eliv, V'chai gali, v'tzor chevli, v'yitzara, v'hu nisi, u'mano Minat kosi biyom ekra, minat kosi biyom ekra, biyado avki ruchi